The wait is finally over. Spencer Dutton is on his way home, and he's not coming back quietly. After months of heartbreak, battles, and impossible odds, his long-awaited return is set to ignite a firestorm that will shake the very foundation of the Dutton legacy. The final 3 episodes of 1923 promise an electrifying mix of revenge, redemption, and raw emotion, setting the stage for a showdown that will leave fans speechless. As tensions explode and enemies close in, the Yellowstone Ranch is about to become a battleground like never before. So fasten your seatbelts because what's coming next will be nothing short of legendary. Let's be honest, Spencer's journey back to Montana has been frustratingly slow. For weeks, we've watched him face one obstacle after another, constantly repeating the same promise to return home. It's been like watching a man run on a treadmill. Lots of movement, but no actual progress. He's met Italian mobsters, tasted pizza, encountered Prohibition-era conservative women's groups, and crossed paths with a female marshal. All interesting historical touchpoints, but they've done little to advance his actual character arc. Every episode has followed the same pattern. Spencer declares he needs to get back to Montana. Something happens to delay him, and we end up exactly where we started. But now, finally, the wheels are turning. At the end of episode 5, we saw Spencer contact the Montana sheriff, declaring his imminent return and his readiness to fight. He didn't even flinch at the sheriff's warnings. Instead, he jumped on the next train to Montana without a second thought. According to the episode descriptions, though, we won't actually see him arrive until episode 7, when Jacob and his crew eagerly await Spencer's return at the train station. This means episode 6 will likely show us Spencer's journey on that train, and based on the trailer, it's not going to be smooth sailing. There's a brief shot in the preview showing Spencer running through a train car with rage written across his face. My guess? He's about to become the target of yet another robbery attempt. Apparently, being a thief was the most popular career choice in the 1920s because everyone seems determined to take what isn't theirs. But here's where things get interesting. Many fans have speculated that Donald Whitfield won't sit idly by while Spencer makes his way home. It's entirely possible he'll send someone to intercept Spencer before he even reaches Montana. In other words, one of Donald's men might try to eliminate the returning Dutton heir emphasis on try, because we all know how that's going to end. This brings us to a crucial question. Who exactly will be waiting for Spencer at the train station? The episode description mentions Jacob and his crew, but they won't be alone. Donald and Banner will undoubtedly have prepared for his arrival too, especially if they've been tipped off. And speaking of tips, let's talk about that sheriff. In a previous video, I suggested he might go to Jacob and Kara first with news of Spencer's return. But many of you in the comments expressed doubt about his trustworthiness. You might be onto something. There's a good chance he'll inform Donald first, setting the stage for an ambush. The sheriff does eventually approach Jacob, urging him to stop Spencer from coming in order to maintain peace in Montana. But as we see in the trailer, Jacob's response is anything but accommodating. He reminds the sheriff that Donald is the one who started this war by attempting to steal their ranch. Faced with Jacob's refusal to cooperate, the sheriff will likely gather his own team of officers to intervene in what's shaping up to be an inevitable clash. So when Spencer finally steps off that train, he'll be greeted by a perfect storm: Jacob's welcoming committee, Donald's hired guns, and law enforcement ready to stop the violence before it starts. Poor Spencer. The man hasn't even had a chance to rest, and he's walking straight into a powder keg. I don't know about you, but I'm incredibly worried for Spencer. He's already been through hell and back, and now he's heading into what might be the most dangerous situation yet. The actual confrontation won't unfold until episode 7, which gives us plenty of time to speculate about how it will all go down. But here's something particularly interesting I've heard. that this upcoming gunfight will actually reveal the origin story of the infamous train station from Yellowstone. Remember that cliff where the Duttons dispose of their enemies? Apparently, we're going to see Banner creating that tradition by callously throwing a worker's body over the edge. It's going to be as brutal and tragic as you'd expect, but we'll dive deeper into those details after next week's episode. Now, let's shift our focus to Alexandra. With Spencer making his way to Montana, you might think she'd be hot on his heels, right? Wrong. Based on the episode descriptions, if you've been paying attention to the show's patterns, you'll notice that it tends to focus on Alexandra in one episode, then barely mentions her in the next. Since episode 5 gave us substantial scenes with her, I'm betting episode 6 will largely ignore her storyline. We'll probably just get a brief glimpse of her during this rare moment of calm. The family she's staying with will likely insist on having a doctor examine her once they realize she's pregnant, and that's when things will start to spiral. Many fans are predicting she'll either lose the baby or fall seriously ill before she can reunite with Spencer. Here's the heartbreaking reality. If Alexandra does make it to Montana, it would be one of the most triumphant moments in the entire Yellowstone franchise. But I can't shake this feeling that we're being set up for something devastating. The show has been laying the groundwork for a tragic conclusion to her character arc, and I fear her journey might end before she ever sees Spencer again. I desperately hope I'm wrong about this, but the writing seems to be on the wall. Switching gears to Tiana's storyline, I believe we're approaching a major turning point for her character. Her profound remarks in episode 5 felt like an awakening. She's realizing she can't keep running from the consequences of her actions forever. After fighting so hard to protect herself and her loved ones, the walls are closing in. She's reached a crossroads: continue running or make her stand. To me, her words were clear foreshadowing. In the next episode, I fully expect her to take matters into her own hands. Instead of fleeing, she's going to confront Father Renault and finally end his reign of terror permanently. Though I should note that the actor playing Renault is credited in episode 7, so this confrontation might be saved for the finale. The hunter will become the hunted, and the catalyst for this change will be learning about Pete's death. Once Tiana discovers that her young lover was brutally killed, something inside her will snap. It will be time for vengeance, and I can't wait to see it unfold. By the way, my favorite character, the female marshal, will likely be the one to deliver the devastating news about Pete to Tiana. Their interaction promises to be one of the most emotionally charged moments of the episode. The marshal has been tracking Tiana for some time now, but I suspect their confrontation won't play out the way we might expect. There could be a surprising alliance forming, especially given the marshal's own complicated history with the law and justice. Let's circle back to the Dutton Ranch, where tensions are reaching a boiling point. Jacob has been preparing for war ever since his recovery, gaining allies and fortifying defenses. Episode 6 will show us just how extensive those preparations have become. The ranch hands who have remained loyal to the Duttons will be arming themselves, setting up lookout positions, and establishing a perimeter around the property. It's going to transform from a working ranch into a fortress, and every man and woman there knows they're in for the fight of their lives. Cara Dutton continues to be the emotional backbone of the family, but even her legendary strength is being tested. We'll see her writing another letter to Spencer, not knowing if he'll ever receive it, pouring out her fears and hopes as the situation grows increasingly dire. These letters have been a beautiful narrative device throughout the season, revealing Cara's innermost thoughts while connecting the separate storylines. Her words will be particularly poignant this time as she reflects on everything the family has endured and what might lie ahead. Meanwhile, Donald Whitfield is tightening his grip on the surrounding properties. His strategy of forcing neighboring ranchers into debt is working perfectly, and he's starting to believe his victory is inevitable. We'll get a scene of him in his study, perhaps with Banner Creighton at his side, mapping out their final moves against the Duttons. Donald's arrogance will be on full display as he underestimates just how far Jacob and his family are willing to go to protect what's theirs. He believes money can buy anything, but he's about to learn that some things like Dutton determination can't be purchased at any price. Banner Creighton presents an interesting wild card in all of this. While he's aligned himself with Donald, their partnership has always been one of convenience rather than loyalty. Episode 6 might show us the first cracks in that alliance, especially as Banner realizes just how expendable he might be in Donald's grand scheme. There could be a moment where Banner considers switching sides or at least protecting his own interests separate from Donald's. After all, Banner's primary motivation has always been survival, and he's proven himself adept at sensing which way the wind is blowing. The sheep herders who have been caught in this power struggle will find themselves increasingly trapped between these warring factions. We might see some of them making desperate attempts to flee the region altogether, recognizing that no matter who wins this fight, their way of life is likely coming to an end. Their exodus would serve as a powerful visual metaphor for the changing landscape of the American West as traditional agricultural practices give way to more industrial interests. Let's not forget about Jack and Elizabeth, whose storyline has taken a backseat in recent episodes. With Jack fully recovered from his wounds, he'll be eager to join the fight alongside his great-uncle Jacob. This will naturally create tension with Elizabeth, who is still processing her miscarriage and terrified of losing her husband. Their conflict represents the eternal Dutton dilemma, balancing family love with the duty to protect the ranch at all costs. We'll likely see a heated argument between them, with Elizabeth pleading for Jack to reconsider. The political landscape of Montana will also come into sharper focus in this episode. We'll see how local officials are responding to the escalating conflict, most of them likely swayed by Donald's wealth and influence. There might be a scene where Jacob confronts one of these corrupt officials, perhaps the mayor or a judge, calling them out for betraying the people they're supposed to serve. It would be a powerful moment that highlights the broader themes of the show, how money and power shape justice in the American West. The idealistic vision of the American frontier has always been threatened by forces seeking to corrupt it. Weather will play a significant role as well. Montana winters are notoriously brutal, and the approaching storm clouds will serve as both a literal challenge and a metaphor for the darkness closing in around the Duttons. The harsh conditions will add another layer of difficulty to Spencer's journey, and might even delay the arrival of reinforcements that Jacob is counting on. This environmental pressure cooker will only heighten the tension as all parties rush to make their moves before the full force of winter descends. The Native American elders who have been advising Tiana will face increasing danger as the authorities intensify their search. We might see them making difficult decisions about whether to continue sheltering her or encourage her to surrender for her own safety. Their wisdom and perspective offer a crucial counterpoint to the European-descended settlers' view of the land and its meaning, reminding us that this conflict extends far beyond just the Dutton family and their immediate adversaries. Episode 6 will likely give us more insight into the school where Tiana was abused, perhaps showing us the aftermath of her escape and how the institution is responding to growing scrutiny. The nuns and priests remaining there will likely double down on their harsh methods, fearful that any sign of weakness might encourage more students to rebel. This storyline continues to shine a light on one of America's darkest chapters, the systematic attempt to erase indigenous cultures through these boarding schools. The spiritual aspects of the show will become more pronounced in Episode 6. We've already seen how Native American beliefs and practices have informed Tiana's journey, but we might also witness Kara turning to prayer in her darkest hour, seeking guidance and protection for her family. This exploration of faith under fire adds another dimension to the characters, showing how they find meaning and purpose even in the midst of chaos. Spencer's time in Africa and Europe has changed him profoundly, and these experiences will influence how he approaches the coming conflict. Unlike the younger man who left Montana, this Spencer understands the true cost of violence. He's not rushing home with blind rage, but with a soldier's calculated determination. We might get flashbacks to his time hunting predators or fighting in the war, moments that shaped his understanding of survival and strategy. These reflections will make his eventual actions more meaningful, showing that he's not just fighting out a family obligation, but from a deep understanding of what's truly at stake. The economic realities of 1923 America will continue to form an important backdrop to the story. While the country was experiencing the prosperity of the Roaring Twenties, rural areas like Montana were already feeling the pressures that would eventually lead to the Great Depression. Donald Whitfield represents the new industrial capitalism pushing into these traditional spaces, viewing the land not as a heritage to be preserved, but as a resource to be exploited. Episode 6 might show us more of his operations, perhaps revealing how he treats his workers and what his ultimate plans are for the valley once he takes control. Technology is another fascinating element of this era that the show has explored. In Episode 6, we might see the contrast between the Duttons' traditional ranching methods and the modern techniques that Donald wants to implement: cars versus horses, telegrams versus letters, rifles versus automatic weapons. These juxtapositions highlight the transitional period this story occupies, as America moves from its frontier past toward its industrial future. Spencer, having seen the wider world, will serve as a bridge between these eras, bringing new knowledge back to Montana while still honoring the traditions that built his family's legacy. The women of 1923 deserve special attention, as they've consistently been some of the strongest characters in the series. Cara, Alexandra, Elizabeth, Tiana, and even the female marshal all represent different facets of womanhood in this period, challenging and expanding the limited role society tried to impose on them. Episode 6 will continue to showcase their resilience and agency, perhaps with a scene where they confer together, sharing their fears and strengths as they prepare for whatever comes next. The generational themes that run throughout the entire Yellowstone universe will be particularly evident as Jacob and Spencer prepare to reunite. Their relationship represents the passing of the torch, with the elder Dutton recognizing that the future of the ranch will soon rest in younger hands. There might be a moment where Jacob reflects on his own journey, perhaps looking at old photographs or visiting the graves of family members who came before him, considering his place in the long line of Duttons who fought to protect this land. This contemplation would add emotional weight to the coming confrontation, reminding us of the historical stakes that extend beyond any single battle. As Episode 6 builds toward its climax, we'll see the various storylines converge, setting the stage for the conflicts ahead. Storylines are beginning to converge. Separate character arcs that have felt disconnected will start to reveal their interconnectedness, creating a sense that we're witnessing the final pieces of a complex puzzle falling into place. This narrative tightening will generate tremendous momentum heading into the final 2 episodes, making it clear that no one will escape the coming storm unscathed. The episode will likely end with several cliffhangers designed to leave us desperate for more. Perhaps we'll see Spencer's train pulling into the station, cutting to black just before he steps onto the platform. Or maybe we'll witness Alexandra receiving devastating news about her pregnancy, leaving us to wonder how she'll cope. Tiana might finally confront Father Renaud, with their conflict poised to explode in the next episode. These unresolved tensions will create an almost unbearable anticipation for what's to come. Looking ahead to the final episodes, it's clear that not all of our beloved characters will make it to the end. The Yellowstone franchise has never shied away from killing off major characters, and 1923 continues that tradition. The question isn't whether there will be significant deaths, but rather who will fall and how their sacrifices will shape the survivors. My prediction is that at least one major Dutton family member won't live to see the credits roll on the finale, and their death will fundamentally alter the trajectory of this story. The legacy aspects of 1923 are particularly fascinating when viewed through the lens of Yellowstone. We're watching the creation of traditions and grudges that will echo for generations, ultimately influencing the modern-day Duttons we've come to know through John, Beth, and Case. The train station disposal site is just one example of how this prequel is filling in crucial pieces of the family mythology. Episode 6 might introduce other elements that will become cornerstones of the Dutton identity, perhaps relating to their code of loyalty or their approach to outside threats. Something I'm particularly looking forward to is seeing how Spencer's military experience informs his strategy against Donald and Banner. Will he introduce modern warfare tactics to this essentially frontier conflict? His time hunting Africa's most dangerous predators and fighting in the trenches of World War I has given him a unique perspective on combat that none of his adversaries share. This expertise could prove decisive in the coming battles, demonstrating why he was the only one who could save the ranch, as Kara mentioned in her letters. Episode 6 won't provide easy answers, but it will continue to challenge us to see the complexity of this era, not just through the lens of heroes and villains, but through the eyes of people fighting for their survival in an ever-changing world. As we prepare for the final 3 episodes, it's worth reflecting on just how masterfully Taylor Sheridan has constructed this chapter of the Dutton saga. What could have been merely a historical footnote has become a rich, complex narrative in its own right, with characters we've grown to love and fear in equal measure. Episode 6 will remind us why we've become so invested in this world, delivering moments of shocking violence, tender emotion, and moral complexity, hallmarks of the entire franchise. So brace yourselves for Sunday's episode. The fuse has been lit, the players are taking their positions, and the explosion is imminent. Dutton is coming home, and nothing, absolutely nothing, will ever be the same again. Share your thoughts in comment section and subscribe my channel for more 1923 updates.